going on, everyone? Welcome back to Lords of War Hobby Channel. I'm Chris, this is Jay, and we're here chatting about our favorite hobby, miniature wargaming hobby, where we try to share like 30 years each, oh geez, too old, experience doing this fun hobby.
It's been that many.
No, we're being positive. We're being positive. Yeah, that's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Working on miniatures way
too long. Yeah.
Yep.
So for those of you just tuning in for the first time, we have another channel called Lords of War Games and Hobbies where we do our shop talk because we both happen to also own a hobby store. So today's conversation is something that a lot of people, it's something we do in the shop all the time, and it's obviously something Jay and I do all the time, which is planning, the whole idea of like how to start an army or planning to start an army. And we just wanted to talk about some of the things that we do and some of the ideas we could share with you if you're new getting into this hobby, or if you've been doing it a long time and you still maybe you're struggling a little bit to finish projects and that sort of thing. Maybe some of the things we have to share might help. I don't know. We'll see.
Maybe.
Or not. Maybe not at all. So I started off with these are just a couple samples from a couple different armies that I've done in the last number of years or whatever. And I got my little Blood Angel guy here. Yep. And then I've got my my little Plague Bearer guy for my Maggotkin of Nurgle army. Yeah. And they both tell a very different story of kind of planning. The Plague Bearer is a fun one because it was sort of like an attempt at a scheme that went horribly wrong. Oh. But then ended up being something cool and different, and I just kind of went with it.
I'm trying to remember what you're... Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then the Space Marine one is just an exercise in like an idea in my head, and then trying to execute it with my own like sort of like knowledge of doing the hobby for a long time.
Yes. Yeah,
So where, I don't know, let's start here at the beginning, is like when you get an idea in your head that like Jay is going to start a brand new army, what is like foundational step number one for you when it comes to the painting part of it?
Yeah, sure. I usually immediately try and think of a bit of I break it down to like where these people like live, or where are they, physically, like what planet are they on, what's the setting looking like. So so if I think of my Cities of Sigmar army, maybe I'll throw a photo up here shortly or whatever. It's a lot of I think instantly of like a race of people, or sort of a collection of a nation of people that is like by the fluff, and where it's like a hard place to live. So it's like grimy, dirty. There's a lot of like iron and wood and things bolted together. It's not really meant to be like pretty. It's kind of like just scrungy and kind of like that. So, and I take some inspiration from the books too, like the Games Workshop army books, codexes. They have some nice kind of like fluff and art. It's worth taking a little read into.
Right.
Anyway, so and now I'm gonna do some soul blights. That's kind of you think of vampire counts and things like that. You think of I imagine it's never like sunny there. It's just always like twilight and dark, and I think of a lot of earth tones, and then juxtaposed with some like cold colors because like pale skin and things. So whatever it is, if when I painted some of I had a unit of Deepkin, whatever the eel guys, I immediately, when I thought of like the sea, I'm thinking of like coral colors and teals and mixing those together. So anyway, the reason the setting matters is because then I kind of think of like, well, what is the base going to look like?
Interesting.
So for my cities, it was like cobblestone, but that had a lot of like moss and grimy stuff and dirt in it, and maybe some pools of water, or in this case I kind of like extended it further to I found some like autumn leaves that were like orangey and things, and I was like, okay, so then I have like the base kind of has like some of those colors on it. So if I have those elements on it, now I'm going to like think of how can I balance the rest of the miniature so that it doesn't like have too many of those elements. So then again, if the base is A neutral color, it's easy. I often tell people if you're not sure what to base your army, like you can do the urban ash tones you see on like Space Marine bases because they're fighting in rubble is like pretty good on everything. It's like it's gray. It doesn't really matter what colors your guys are, but if you like do now this is not a hard rule because it can change. Like I appreciate wanting to have like a snow and ice base for your Space Wolves, and then they're also painted cold colors. Like that's fine, but sometimes it can make everything look samey when you look at it like just from a distance because like the base is blue, the guy's blue.
It makes the contrast difficult.
There's a reason why Space Wolves they chose like an off color to be bright yellow. It breaks that up so that you visually your eye can discern something. Similarly with these Blood Angels, I think why the classic scheme has that yellow. Really because the black kind of disappears, the red is pops, but if the helmet was also red and the crest was red, you'd just be like, "What am I just looking at a blob of red?" So anyway, so it starts with like the where are these guys fighting and living, and then you move on to like what the base might look like, and then the rest of the guy kind of comes after that. This is the way I
No, that's fascinating. I think it's really interesting that like thinking about the setting, like and the setting can mean like you said where they live and where they exist. But also it can mean like the story and like the colors they might wear in battle, if there's examples of that. Immediately those two things give you colors you can pull. Yeah. Like and give you like a starting point, right? That's very interesting. I'm way more basic than Jay when it comes to this. Far less creative.
Chris just scrolls photos and does
I'm literally Google Images guy or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, that looks good.
I'm just like, how can I copy other people? No, but yeah, I get different inspirations. So like, these two are very different examples. So like, for the Magakin, it was literally a case of like finding inspiration in work someone else did, in the sense that like I think it was a White Dwarf article, and they had like I don't know 8 different plague bearers painted in different schemes.
Yeah, I think it's when the Magakin came out. Their issue was full of like tons of colors.
And I was thinking like to myself, they had a similar scheme like this. It was like a pale plague bearer, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like no, I've never seen an army like that before. Yeah. So that was my inspiration, and then I was basically like trying to like work it out, like how I would do it, and I ended up painting a prototype. It was a plague bearer like this. I don't know if it was this exact plague bearer. I got like 30 of these guys. And just by like messing around and doing it, I ended up with something kind of a little different. And then because it looked different, I was like, so for example, with this miniature, like I was like, okay, I'm going to use all these cold gray tones with some blue in it. And then to me, like it didn't look that interesting. And then so I took like this like turquoisey greenish kind of shade and like shaded everything with it to add that extra depth to the miniature. And then I was like, oh, okay, actually I do like this. Yeah. And then for finding out like the other colors on the miniature, like the orange and the guts color and stuff like that, I'll usually just go to like the color wheel. Yeah. A lot of the time, and then like use the color wheel to find like, okay, I'm on this side of the color wheel. I'm going to go across into the side and then like find something that's
complementary.
One of the complementary tones as a secondary color.
Here's a pro tip. Yeah, you don't need to like master color theory, but if you just get yourself a little color wheel and just like learn the few basics, like the opposite ones or the complementary ones. So if you match those two together, you'll be fine. Like generally speaking, blue and orange, yellow and purple, and things like that.
And then basically just getting your process down by doing the prototype or whatever, like, figuring out, okay, I'm going to highlight it. Like these are the steps that I want to do. And this is how I want it to look. And then asking yourself the question when you're done, can I replicate this? Yeah. Like, I want you to all think long and hard about that and think to yourself, okay, that took me 6 hours or something like that. And you're like, yeah, I get it was the first one. There was a lot of thinking and testing around. It's okay. Can I actually do a full army to this level or with all these steps in a reasonable amount of time? And is that even like a reasonable thing to ask myself to do? Right. Yeah. So that 100% is always part of this process as well, is also discerning are there certain things that I can airbrush on this model?
Yeah.
To speed it up? Are there some washes that I can use in maybe a controlled way or an uncontrolled way? Oil paints, things that I can speed up the process, and maybe it'll look 85% as good, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, and that's really what when we're talking about painting armies here. We're not always trying to make masterpieces. We're trying to like make it look like we're happy with it, and then, you know, finish it.
Yep.
That's the big thing, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And for me, like, the model always comes first, and the basing comes like later, and I'm basically trying to fit the base to my miniature. But it's actually probably why Jay ends up with more interesting bases than I do, because he's thinking the whole time about the whole setting of the miniature.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm just trying to work it in at some point.
He's like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Again, these are just the different routes to the same answer, you know, whatever. It's kind of, it really depends on how the one benefit of thinking of the base first is you can then decide if you need to like make them before sticking the model on. So if you're going to make a crazy base with like all these elements with like water and this and that, it makes sense to build them and then like pin the model in at the like later on, basically. Otherwise, it's kind of like how show models are done. They kind of do them separately. They don't just like
for sure.
But again, if you also don't care and you're like, I just need. That's why I love Horus Heresy, because it's just like powder bases most often. It's like just so slamming.
Well, they're on these like big desolate battlefields.
So sometimes I'm like, I love the clean and speed of it. It depends on the project, you know. So
this one was like, I guess in a lot of ways similar to the Plague Bearer. I had inspiration with this, so like I really loved the Primaris models when they came out, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do a Space Marine army like everyone else is thinking, right? And I was like, what kind of Space Marine army would I want to do? And for me, it was a nostalgic thing. It was like, well, I remember this Space Marine army from when I was a kid that a gentleman painted at the store I went to. And the Blood Angels had this like orange, like Blood Angels Red was orange basically in the paint range for a long time.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I kind of want to do like orangish Blood Angels, like not the kind of modern red Blood Angels.
Yeah.
Like this guy Jake had painted his army years ago. It was kind of burned into my brain, and so this is one of the rare cases where I didn't really have as much. My inspiration was more like looking up old pictures of like second edition codexes and like old school paint jobs and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
trying to kind of like pull that into the future and be like, okay, how would I paint this using modern techniques, but like capture the essence of that like old style or whatever. Because like back in the 90s, everything was like very flat painted. Yeah. With like really bright highlights and edge
slap chopping and pre-lighting and all this stuff. Yeah.
So for this one, it was just a matter of like finding the right, you know, orangish red colors, and you know, I went for that airbrushed Space Marine look. Yep. Because it was also a matter of like getting the army done.
Getting it done.
Yeah. So it was a good compromise. And for an army like this, it was kind of like, okay, like I don't want to spend more than like, I don't know, 10 hours painting any unit. So it's got to make sense, right? So the most time consuming thing on these guys was I used black ink to like panel line and just like to punch the.
Makes a big deal.
It adds a lot, but it's probably the most time consuming for sure. Yeah. So I mean, that's basically it. Like as far as like getting ready to paint an army, it's all about just kind of like having. I think it's like they could boil it down to just like thinking about things.
Just think a little. Just think a little bit.
Yeah, it's easy to jump in and just start slamming paint on and stuff, and I get that, but like I think there's a lot of value to even taking a couple hours and just like looking through some books or looking online through Google Images, or the best projects in my opinion are the ones like you said that you're inspired by like a setting or a story or like something, because it gives you a really good like anchor point to kind of like go off of, right? And Horus Heresy is a great example because like there's a reason why like Horus Heresy armies tend to look really cool and good. There's so much inspiration to draw from for them, right? Cool. You got anything else to give these con people advice?
No, I think we gave them all for now.
We can't give it all away in one video, guys. Sorry, you got to come back for more.
Come back for more.
Well, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this gives you some help, or maybe it was just fun to watch. Hopefully, we'll take that.
Or you hated it. Yeah.
Or it was terrible. Yeah,
just tell us.
You'll tell us. I know
You'll be
you'll
like,
tell us.
don't
Yeah.
ever do that again. Whatever. Yeah.
If you have any ideas for these kind of videos, you want to see us paint something or talk about a specific hobby topic, let us know. Patreon's the best place to reach us. Lords War Games and Hobbies on Patreon. You can even become a free member on there and reach us. And we have our other channel where we do like more industry kind of sit and talk style stuff. So you can check that out as well. Until next time, thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks.
Cheers.